Regular meeting of the Swanzey Board of Selectmen for today, December 7th. It's called to order.
Make the motion, we approve the regular meeting minutes of November 30th.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make the motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have anybody online? We have anybody online for public input?
You'd be able to hear them if they wanted to speak.
Anyone here have any questions or comments before we get into the rest of our agenda?
Oh, Mr. Krebs.
Oh, hi.
I don't want to miss this one. Excuse me for not forgetting up here. Let me move. I don't need to move the slide. Robert Krebs, 319 Holbrook, resident, Swanzey, New Hampshire. State Rep Rhodes and I had a meeting with Michael a couple mornings ago. We have brought up the fact that we've had the road test. We've come to an agreement that it's a safety issue.
Excuse me, are you referring to
The crossing.
the agenda item that we have? This particular portion is just public input, but you're on the agenda for 5:35.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No need to apologize.
Just go right into it.
Because once I missed the beginning, I ended up staying through the whole meeting, so.
All right, so did anyone else have any comment before we get to the agenda?
If you don't mind, Secretary Captain Swanzey Fire, just wanted to say thank you, Board, for the time, efforts, and consideration with Chief and continuing forward and supporting the fire department. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
But we always supported the fire department.
Well, I totally understand what you're saying, Bill, but it meant a lot to us, so it doesn't go unnoticed, so thank you.
Appreciate it, thanks. Anyone else? Now, Mr. Krebs.
Thank you.
Is Jennifer coming?
No, she just left Concord. So
Okay.
She was held up with a vote, so she won't be here. So I am here. As I'm repeating myself, we had a meeting with Michael. We discussed at length the state results, where the state's position is. It's a clear and present danger. We know the speed limit's too fast through that area. Another area which no one has talked about, we did a street study. We haven't done a pedestrian study. The amount of people coming through there is easily tripled in the last couple of years. It's being promoted by the state on a website. I've met some people from foreign countries coming through my property over the summer, so there are a lot of people coming. Now, as far as people who live here and pay taxes, accessing the trail is another problem that we have not even talked about. Many of the people, Mrs. Hebert, Gary St. Peter, residents, and I just a few up my end, there's at least a dozen people who bring their dogs from the covered bridge, Westport Road, up by the cemetery where it's 35 to get to the trail in which they go north for how long? Some of them go forever and they come back. It's along that road where they are walking with their dog that these cars are flying around the corner. I thought it was just absurd that Mrs. Hebert told me, she goes, well, I can tell that they're coming fast. I can't see them. I can tell which ones are coming fast, and I jump out of the way. I mean, so if anyone would like to come along and walk that area with me, I'd be more than happy to accompany you if you'd like to come and see what I'm talking about.
He's looking right at you, Cam.
I know.
I think you'll, well, I don't hear anyone take us, but, so where we're at with this is we would like to ask the town to write a letter to the state requesting 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. Whether they do it or don't, that's fine. I think it's prudent for many reasons, on legal reasons, that the town does write a letter to them. Because this has been publicly discussed, it's documented, it's been brought up and advocated by a state rep. We've had a study up by the state. We know that we're speeding, so let's just ask the state. I read in a couple areas, if the town feels that it's unsafe, the state may make an allowance and agree with the state and grant it or whatever, I don't have the proper legislative term. But by doing so, the town is saying that there is a public safety, that we've discussed it, it's been out there, that we've had a test, and we're telling the state that we think it's a problem. So somewhere down the road, and I'll take the over on this, if there is an accident, our municipal council and the town will take a piece of paper and say, we told you, and we can't be adjoined by any type of legal lawsuit going forward. I brought this up towards some associates of mine in Chicago who are trial attorneys for an insurance company, and they said, and this was just free advice, they said, you don't want a trial attorney to get a hold of this if something happens. And they told me that some shape or form, by sending a letter to the state saying that we've gone through all the process, we are verified, saying that we notice that we can't be assumed being negligent, because now that we know, if you know about something that's wrong and something happens, that's knowingly intent negligence. This way, we're telling the state, hey, there's a problem. Our state rep said there's a problem. The state speed test or test evaluation said that there's average almost 40 miles an hour. And so basically the town is, I think, insulated, and if they decide, be so kind to give us 30 miles an hour, so be it. The only thing we ask, or Jennifer asked, is that before the letter sent, that she may review it. That's it.
I think we're pretty much on record of being in support, so.
It's the last page on the consent agenda, I believe.
So apparently the letter's been drafted.
Oh.
Don't know if Jennifer's reviewed it, but we can make sure that she has opportunity to read it.
Well, I thank you for your time and diligence and reacting quickly to it.
Sorry it took so long.
Well, we appreciate the effort that you've put in to bring it to our attention and to bring it along with Jennifer to get to this point.
This was not about me. At least a half a dozen people have asked me to do this. I don't know why, because I think they're crazy, but I said I would bring this up, Mrs. Brown, so forth and so on, everyone that lives along that road. I thank the time, and I thank this lady for her service. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank
Enjoy the holidays.
You as well.
It is now. Apparently, it's right in here.
Mr. Chair, before we, just to jump out of order a little bit, do we want to take item 6B?
Sure.
Mr. Lorando, you've been nominated to rejoin Southwest Regional Planning's Transportation Committee. Would you like to speak to the board? And
Any questions?
we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks for doing this, Gus.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Chief Gould, welcome.
Mr. Chair, before Chief gets started, I know the size of the spreadsheet, you brought your own, so you're in a little better shape, but it's a little small and probably difficult to read, so I did set this up in case we wanted to try to use the projector to project it, or I think that's problematic. We have to obviously move him out of the way, but up to your pleasure.
You're choreographing this, you do whatever you think is best.
If you guys can read it, that's fine. If not, we can,
Well, I can tell you, I can't read it if it's done that way.
well, the screen would be up here so you can see it.
I don't know, it's up
Let's
to you.
still try to proceed.
I think we should see this screen.
All right, make that happen.
All right, you're gonna have to.
Whatever logistical challenges you have.
I only say that because the budget is what your guys is, and I don't want to skew it the wrong way. That's why.
You'll have to sit over here.
I gotta move.
Where are you gonna put the screen on? Where it is?
Right where you are.
Got all this fancy new equipment.
I don't think that helps Josh.
wasn't gonna be able to see the piece of paper either. I don't want you to go back. Move it up. Every time with this thing is like the first time.
How to win friends.
Really, zero.
Your support is noteworthy. You want it in the back, I think. What am I doing wrong? Why is it?
Good thing you brought your whistle.
Need someone younger. Younger, we need a teenager. Usually I just plug it in and
Separate reasons.
oh, there we go.
They're just tired of
Listening to me.
the function of the BS.
Clear as day.
What's that?
Yes.
Need to reduce that? Hey, Brandon. How are you? Take care, guys. Take care, Michael.
Okay, so what we have here is ambulance budget at the top, then the fire department budget, main budget, footnotes, which we can get into as needed, and then a couple other small side budgets, forest fires, hydrants, and just Southwest Mutual Aid dispatch. So the overall fire department budget, which is what I think our focus is on, is looking at an increase of about 40,000, and that's about a 7% increase. Worth noting that that does not include any wage increases or any of the additional staffing that I think the chief is planning to discuss tonight, but I think it's a good place to start with any questions or concerns about these line items, and then we can get into some of the other discussion items.
Anybody have any questions? Comments?
The heating oil takes into account the new bid price?
Yes. Yeah, I think that was about a 80% increase between, I think it was 2 something last year to 395 or so this year.
Bill, the part-time wages and the part-time shift coverage wages running through the end of November are trending well below projected. Is that made up in the overage of the fire department wages, call, and training?
Yeah, we think that's a posting issue with some of between the new timekeeping and financial softwares. We think it's a posting issue between what's getting posted to the weekend coverage or the part-time versus the on-call, but it looks like it's relatively, might be a little bit over, but it looks like it relatively evens out. So we just need to figure out how those are getting posted.
Are the three intertwined?
Yes.
I had a question regarding the IT software support. Was substantially over budget. And is that expected to continue? I noticed you requested a fairly significant increase over that. Michael reduced it down. So could you talk to us about that?
Yeah, so we took on the new ESO report program, report software, reporting software, which was, startup cost was pretty significant last year, 11,000 change. This year is actually going to go, it's going to be reduced, recurring costs, after startup fees and inspection fees. I believe that's where we had also our e-schedule there last year too, so we actually paid for that, but we discontinued that service. That might put us over a little bit.
So that put us over for this year.
I believe so, yeah.
But going forward for next year, you requested 5,000 more than Michael's recommending?
Because the firehouse bill is going away, so we're going to be not transitioning to ESO, which is firehouse basically is nothing, the cost was nothing. So the ESO is about 6,500. So, and our got solutions we use for our own training and evaluations. That's a cost in there too. But we added the vector evaluations last year, so it's added another cost there.
So where should we come down on the 22 that you're requesting or the 17 that Michael recommends?
So yeah, Michael and I talked about it today, and we got it down to that 17.6 that should cover it.
If you look at this is where the footnotes do come in handy. So this shows the breakdown of each of the softwares that go into that, and that's how we got up with the 17.6. So that's the
number.
I can make it bigger, but then you can't necessarily see as far over.
And then also the bridges in there, that's forward.
Right, yep, Twin Bridges is in there, yes, yep, right here.
And the service contracts, is there, it's not a significant amount of money, but is it going to double in December? In other words, if you got a delayed billing on that, it would bring it up to the roughly 2,200?
No, I don't think so, right?
Is that the one we were talking about funding the air vac?
That should have been under maintenance.
That'd be building maintenance, okay.
Yeah.
So that's mainly the copier.
Copier, and we have AT&T or something.
Oh, the AT&T, those are the monitors and
That's
Is that personal as well?
I
or
think
is
those
that-
come out of cell phone.
That's on cell phone, okay. So
I think it's mainly the copier, so that
Yeah.
might be one we could
It's
knock down $500 or so.
99 a month.
The physicals, and then I don't know what infect control means, but anyway.
Infection control.
Infection, okay, so I should have gone with what I assumed. You know, we've talked about this for years. I'm personally very much in favor of physicals. I'm disappointed to see that the firefighters are not taking advantage of it. And rather than see I'd love to see a cut down to 4,500, but I'm more concerned with the fact that they're not taking advantage of it. And it seems to me to be something that would be important to you all and
Yeah, we sent a number of firefighters to, get the 58 physical, but they were under the grant, so safety grant, that we have in place, so that came out of that cost. So we did have some of the new members go for those physicals. We met with most of the members, we're still meeting with some members, we signed the town's agreement, medical policy, which spells out that police, fire, DPW required to go to physicals. So first of the year, we'll be assigning people physicals this year. Last year, we asked people to go through it, and again, like you said, some people most of them did not take advantage of that. So this year, we'll be assigning members to that.
Good.
So we'll kind of go through that this year.
so is the 4,500 request, is that going to be adequate?
Yeah, I will say. Yeah, drop that down, we cut that in half last year.
And the protective coating, protective clothing is a fairly significant increase.
Yeah, like all the vendors and the manufacturers and all the vendors are telling us everything's getting a price increase. So some things are going up 5%, 10%. So we're anticipating, it's a significant cost anyway, close to the PPE. The members, we have some members that are coming up on 10 years, so they're going to be required to be replaced. And it's up towards between $2,500 and $103,000 to outfit it completely. So it's, we're anticipating that.
The equipment maintenance and repair, is it somewhat of a slight increase? It seems like you're trending online to be on budget for this year. Is that again reflective of inflationary costs for parts and service? And is that adequate?
Yeah, that's, we're going up to 18, so, yeah, that includes, our flow test for CDAs and other equipment that needs to be annually tested. So, and then you have repairs and so forth that comes in with that, so I'm hoping that.
Do you think that'll be adequate?
That should be adequate.
I'm kind of monopolizing this.
No, it's fine.
Okay, sorry. The medical supplies, are there some purchases coming in because you're well below
Oh,
budget?
yeah, no, it should be when it's all said and done, right within the $300 limit. So that should be enough for whatever disposable supplies should be coming up within this next month.
Vehicle repair, going back to the same question, is that adequate, the 45,000?
Yeah, well, it's hard to predict, if we have any major repairs that are going to come up, and any issues. But, for our diesel rigs that go down for service, annual service and inspection, it's average about $1,000 per rig, so we get into that cost, and then if there's any significant repairs, that's one of the reasons why we, obviously, just try to keep up with the maintenance. But yeah, that's a hard.
I know some of it's hard to
Yeah,
predict,
it's hard to predict.
but in terms of what you got for a regular schedule and what you're anticipating,
Yeah, I believe that's adequate.
training and education is, as of the end of November, is roughly 40% below budget, which is great in some ways, but you're holding that number. Is there training coming up?
Yes, yep, I just spent, most of that, we're probably gonna do most of that. So we have a training come up on the 17th of this month. Outside sources come in. We had some members go outside to do some training, so yeah, there's that money.
Kind of level up. Telephone, I think it's telephone and internet. No, it's radios and radio repairs. You're over budget. Do you think the increase to 5,000 is adequate for next year?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah, we got into some, we actually ordered paging equipment for the station. It was supposed to be in 2021, it actually came in this year, so we kind of got billed a little bit that, and we had to do some removals, or the antenna was on the station, so we had to move some stuff around. But we should be okay with that. The radio repairs, we get our radios, we have new radios coming in, so we should be pretty good with that.
Great, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
In any other year, 7% would seem high, but in this year, thank you. Looks like you guys work pretty hard.
Yeah. Great. Michael and Julius, and then Randy, had to work crunching those numbers, so.
Thanks.
Thank you. Forego some of the other stuff until maybe after, since we have all of our special guests here. I like this stuff.
Yeah, you want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. You done with the AV stuff?
For now, at least. One for this is really good.
Okay. Where
You're not gonna be able to hide back there for any longer.
No.
Come on up.
Started the day with you, now I'm in the
Jack, how are you? Good to see you. Well, we appreciate the county coming in and DiLuzio ambulance coming in. What precipitated our request for you to come in was we received a letter from the county with regard to offering backup services to the town. And at the same simultaneous with that, Michael mentioned to us that there was some concern on your part that we might be looking in a different direction. But we wanted to make it clear that we were not. It was unsolicited, to my knowledge. It was unsolicited. We appreciate it, but we have a contract with you, and it's our understanding as of now that we're going to continue with that. But in fairness, and we owe an obligation to the citizens of Swanzey to entertain all parties that are providing service. So we asked Chris and Jack to come in and expand on what they were doing. But again, we wanted to reassure you that we're where we are. So thank you guys for coming in. Appreciate it. So would you be able to expand on that letter? We had a nice presentation from you all a couple of weeks ago upstairs, and I think the the takeaway from that was a different perspective, in the sense that we truly did not anticipate receiving that proposal. Didn't recognize that it would be coming. So we do appreciate the improvement on the corner. If you want to take advantage of a pilot opportunity, we'd be happy to talk to you about that. But it is a beautiful project that you put together. It looks great.
No, we're excited by it. You know, it's come together rather quickly, and a lot of that has to do with the people sitting around this table. So we appreciate your support and getting us what we needed to so we could move forward continually. And as of December 14th, we're up, we're certified, licensed, all that you need to have to be able to do services. Currently, we have a signed contract with Cheshire Medical Center to be their primary service for interfacility transfers. We, in a 3-week period, have, and correct me, Chief, if I'm wrong, again, introduce Chief Michael Spain and Deputy Chief Chad Butler, and of course, you know, Commissioner Wozniak. In about a 3-week period, we're right around 90 transfers. And I think it was 88 to be exact.
Correct.
And in that short period of time also, we're at 25 for staffing, of which 12 are medics. And have 4 more interviews tomorrow with our goal to get to 28, which is, I applaud my HR staff, the chief, the deputy chief, and our finance department to be able to get that up and running and the way they have. We are based currently out of Maplewood and have our 2 ambulances up there. We'll have a 3rd ambulance next week. We have 3 others arriving in late January. And our first wave of hirings was to get our goal to 28. And Chief can talk to why that is. And so we are possibly a day away from reaching that goal. I have the contract with numbers in there so that you have where we're coming from. As we've said from the get-go, it would be we understand that's already contracts in place, but we're introducing ourselves. That's what we're doing. And because of the American Rescue Plan Act funds, we have the ability to work you towards where we think we need to be with the services over a 3-year period. It would be a 3-year contract. So that's what we would be we'd be looking at. But again, we understand everything that is involved with all this, but we wanted to introduce ourselves again. And thank you for a few weeks ago for inviting us down to just give you an update in the history of where we came from to where we are today. But yeah, the facility on the corner of Lake Street and what is the Monadnock Highway it's the 6-bay garage. It's got the administrative building with the sleeping quarters and sitting room and a locker area upstairs and kitchenette and chief's area and deputy chief area and some work areas for people to work in. In the White House, that's part of that will be, again, for traveling nurses for our nursing home and for our Department of Corrections, and they'll actually pay rent for that, and so that will be a revenue stream for us for that. There'll be 4 individuals, possibly 5, that could be staying there. We already have 2 houses that I'm renting in the city of Keenan and Westmoreland, where we have about 9 traveling nurses currently. In this day and age, that's what you have to be aggressive about getting the people here one way or the other, and this is working for us. So if you want, I can hand out the contract. If you want to know anything more to that, Jack can talk to the numbers, and then any questions you may have. Okay? Sure.
While he's doing that, I'll just say, we absolutely respect you have a contract with DiLuzio. We're not trying to put anybody out of business. This is an option. You're going to compare the prices. You should stay with DiLuzio as long as they're able to service you, from my point of view, because that's not what we're doing here. We're prepared to offer you alternatives to 911 service if that works for you. We're prepared to get added to a run card for 911 support or backup if that's helpful to you. And if it's not, then don't. You guys get to make the decision. We're now an option out there. We're an alternative. We're clearly going to be doing the interfacility transfers. And for any town that wants to entertain the 911 stuff, we're happy to make a proposal.
So, and we do have the, I forgot to mention, at the end of the day, by August of this coming year, we'll have 8 ambulances. And we already have the intercept that's outside, I think, actually. Chief, did you drive it down?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so we're where we need to be to support every scenario that possibly is out there. And it's not just, what we have found, it's not just about the DiLuzio's contracts and although with their services, it's about the community as whole, the 22 towns, and if need be, the city of Keene. So yeah, run cards are important too in the scheme of things.
Okay, you want to turn it over to the chief?
Yes, Chief, go ahead. Do you have anything, any current numbers or anything?
Actually, just to add, Chris had brought up, we've done 88 calls so far in 23 days, so it's about four calls a day. Our staffing and our vehicles, I want to address. As was said, we've got 2 ALS vehicles functioning 24 hours a day. We have a third one, I'm going to say right around Christmas, by the time it gets certified. We've got the Interceptor, which is the paramedic equipped vehicle. That's going to be up probably in about a week or so, and equipped. Then we've got my car, and then we've got a car for the deputy chief coming. But I think more importantly, the model we've put together is we need 28 people, and we're there pretty much. Because when I say that, we're at 25 employees right now. I can tell you tomorrow I've got 5 interviews tomorrow. Out of that breakdown of personnel, we've got 12 medics. I am interviewing medics tomorrow. We've got, I think, 8 or 9 EMTs, and the rest are EMTs. So what we're looking to do is really kind of an all-encompassing, not only to do the inter-facility transfers, also the 911, but also education. I think one of the best things to bring about in assisting people is education. With that being said, I was going to interview the coordinator for our education coordinator today. Unfortunately, the gentleman had a medical emergency in his family, so that's pushed off to next week. But by the end of the year, starting next year, we want to come around. With our program we want to set up, it's training of our personnel, it's training of fire department personnel, it's also training of the citizens. So that our goal is, by the American Ambulance Association, to have someone trained once the call goes in within 9 months. Now, with that being said, given the complexity of our county with just one station, that's going to be completely impossible. But we're working toward that. How do we do that? Is, as I said, educating the public, working with fire departments to see if it's the possibility of housing an ambulance in there. But when we're all said and done, what the model is to have at least 3 paramedic units up 24 hours a day. I'm talking ambulances, I'm sorry, just to make the clarification. At least 1 fly car, paramedic equipped. 2 of the other vehicles will be a EMT minimum, and then possibly 1 or 2, depending on how it works out, as far as basic vehicles. So with that being said, that's really what we're looking for. And to emulate what Chris and Jack said, we're not looking to ace anybody out. We're here to provide a service and with the complexity of medical emergencies, by the year 2030, the 7% or 8% of medical emergencies that we're seeing right now, because some of us, not you guys, but I'm getting older, and it's going to be about 20%, if not more. With that being said, we're all living life due to pharmaceuticals that are coming from our doctor and the Walgreens, but when we get sick, it's sicker. We have a higher acuity rate, so it's just kind of one of those generational things that we're having to work through. So to get back, what do we have now? We are staged at Maplewood. which is very far from here. We did get the certificate of occupancy. That was given on the 5th, which is just a couple of days ago. We're in the process of doing the final walkthrough. There are some hiccups here and there that the contractor's making good. We're already starting to move the furnishings in. The goal is by this time next week to have our vehicles there as well as our staff.
So,
When you, just a quick question, just for clarification, when you mentioned percentages, 7%, 8%, 20%, 20, 30, what did that mean?
Okay, what has been proven is it was in 2019, 7% of the population, 7 to 8%, will ever use an ambulance, an EMS service through their whole lifespan. Right now, because, and it came out of big data, the book, that they're projecting, given with the medical issues, people living longer, that number will be at about 20% by the year 2030 of people that will have used the ambulance. Now, is it all going to be ALS? Nobody knows. Is it all going to be, where they need IVs, where they need medication? I don't know. This is just all encompassing. I do know at the National Fire Academy and the Fire Administration that they are working with the Hospital Association to try to come up with some figures, but it's too premature at this point to really give a breakdown.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Sorry, Chris.
no, and just in the handout that I gave you, on the back last page are the numbers that we're reflecting. As we've told you in the past, and we've been very honest to any and every town that we've gone into, that when we looked at where we needed to be to run the programming that we needed to run, that things needed, in our minds, things needed to change, and there needed to be a price differential that reflected that. And so, but we can get you there over a period of time because of the monies that we can use through the ARPA funding. So, and if you have any questions pertaining to the numbers, we can address that too.
And I think the one concern that we have was the fluidity of the numbers. And is this the same proposal that we received?
My recollection is the number's the same. I think the formatting and the language of the contract got tightened up a bit. But yeah, basically, as we said, probably 2 years ago at this point, the rates fundamentally need to double over some period of time to get to a sustainable point for the 911 service. And so we took a look at 5 years of run data. We took a look at like the number of runs by town in the county, by payer source. We did calculations on the staffing profile that we're looking at to keep the ambulances going 24/7 and to pay for them, even if the phone doesn't ring. And allocated that across all of the towns of the county that might be approachable, that aren't currently being served by Keene, to come up with a price of sustainability to keep it going. Because as you may remember, the delegation said you can get into this, but it's got to pay for itself, and it can't fall on the towns that aren't using the service. And so we've spent, I'll probably say, a couple hundred hours with a variety of people that have been in the ambulance business for decades to scope out financial profiles to make sure that the costs are covered. We don't need to make money at this. We need to cover the expenses. We need to build in a certain amount for capital replacement over the years, replacing ambulances every 5 or 7 years or something. In general, our intention would be, as we do now with the county budget, we produce a quarterly budget report so everybody could see the revenues and expenses of this particular department along with every other department. And we would certainly lower the prices depending upon how things are, or make adjustments and walk down the road together. But the idea being all of the costs and the revenues would be transparent, and recognizing that it's an enterprise fund that simply needs to pay for itself.
Just to add on, and I was remiss, I just addressed in the next couple of months, by this time next year, we're probably going to be an employ of about 50 55 to 60 personnel. Because when we're looking, we just because we have vehicles, we also have to staff them. And for each vehicle, because we're doing the 4 platoon system 24 hours a day, they'll work one 24-hour tour, off 4, work another 24-hour tour, and off 2. In order to staff the ambulances, and it takes for each ambulance, it takes 8 people to do on the 4 platoon system. So you can do the numbers after that. But we're going to be definitely over 50 employees by this time next year, if not in a few months.
And then Chief, one of the things that's been interesting to me is, and one of the concerns we had is we didn't want to decimate other services in the area, because we're only as strong as Rescue Inc. We're only as strong as Jaffrey and whoever else is out there. And 85% of our hires have been outside of Cheshire County that are coming in. And we've got people now that are moving back, either live here and work outside the area and want to be back here and not have to drive the distances, or they're now looking at homes and moving into this community, which is exciting to me at a time when we need that, where Cheshire County has been a county where we lost, in our last census, lost population, so.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions?
I guess the other thing is, short of a full contract for backup services, is, you've expressed many times you're here to help. What are some ways that could complement our existing operations with DiLuzio and the fire department and Keene Fire? What are some ideas that can offer about complementing short of a full contract for backup services?
Let me just start real quick, and Chief, you can jump in. From our standpoint, and I can tell you, like with Westmoreland, they just were able to pass their new fire department, and we were able to help them with a few things. One is, we had an old generator at the nursing home that they were able to now utilize for their facility and town hall at the same time, because it's huge. But more importantly, we have a grant team, and we've been sending them grants to be able to pursue, and our grant team can help support that on certain levels. I will never sit here and tell you that the grant team can come in and write your grant for you, because in the county, we have a grant team of 2. They handle 41 grants and over $14 million worth of grants coming in. So that is one way, and that leads into my next thing, is that we were able to land a $200,000 that the chief touched on, a $200,000 grant for education. And it's not about the counties utilizing it for just themselves, the county. It's about community. It's about every town. How can we work together, get the chiefs together and say, how best can we utilize this opportunity? Because it's frustrating to me to know that 2 years ago, the state of New Hampshire sent about, I think it was about close to $700,000 up to Berlin, which they needed up there, I get it, to help develop an educational center for their fire and EMT programming. We've got the same issue here, okay? We're a rural community. Outside of Keene, we're a rural community, and we need to build our educational system here. So our EMTs, our AMTs, our paramedics, whatever it may be, can we get programming? But not just stop there. Can we go into communities and do other levels of education when it comes to this? So that's something that I've asked the chief to work on, and really get the other chiefs together, hear where they're struggling with education, and is there a way that we can develop something here? We've also reached out to River Valley Community College, because the Lake Region Community College has an EMT program, educational program there, and can we start bringing something like that down in this region? And with the partnership that we have with Keene State College, because we through the ARPA money, we gave Keene State $250,000 to help us develop a LNA to LPN to RN program. Because if we don't have a feeder system, we know what we have. We at least need to attempt to build a feeder system here and really have them do internships. And we partnered with Cheshire Medical Center too on this, to do their what is it? When you go into the hospital and they can go up to Maplewood and they can do their clinicals. They can do their clinicals in there, and maybe we can get an RN or an LPN. Right now, we're doing is we're stealing from each other. And so we have to at least attempt to do that. And so That's something that we've started, and we're going to look at other grants to expand that. Well, the same thing can be done here. We need to, we have Keene High School, we have the Cheshire Career Center. Is there more that we can do in getting, we know they have the fire service program, but the EMT program, is there other ways, the safety program at Keene State College, is there other ways to develop off that? So there's a lot of connections that we have that we think we can bring to the table for the surrounding communities, because this is what we've heard from the chiefs. We've talked to the chiefs on multiple occasions around the need for the future, that they're really struggling to get people to volunteer, to sign up, to whatever it may be. So we need to be proactive and try to build that system to feed not just the county. This isn't just about the county, it's about all departments out there, because it's EMT right now, but the fire services are struggling just as hard too. You talk to Chief DiLuzio in Harrisville, a lot of times if there's a situation, he's there. And that's it. And we can't continue down those type of roads. We need to build our future. So that's something we can do. Chief, other things that I'm not mentioning?
You guys want to talk about the mutual aid backup and whatever?
Okay, let's kind of do a couple things. This morning I was invited to the Kiwanis. I was invited to Kiwanis, explained to them what the program that we're putting together for education. I would tell you, many of the individuals this morning at breakfast were and did live in Swanzey. And I said, we would come out, we would do education, we would do CPR, basic first aid, et cetera, to show, because we all can't do it together. I'm sorry, we have to do it together. Sorry about that. With that being said, as we talked about, in my past life, I developed the fire basic program that we had 100% pass at the state level, and actually out of the 215, over 200 are now working as career firefighters. We did the same thing with the EMT program. I've taught at the paramedic level, et cetera. So we're looking to make this a global approach to healthcare in the pre-hospital care setting. Now, we've talked to Dr. Swanzey, and I've said I'm going to be meeting with the chiefs, because I don't want to superimpose what I think is needed. I want to hear from the chiefs. In fact, what do you think we need? So the education coordinator can sit down, we can map out. I'd like to do at least in a year in advance, so you can go, whatever department we're at, whatever location we're at, anybody in the area can come to it. You can come either to our location, we can go to the firehouses, we can go just about anywhere, but this is to be open. And personally, I don't care what department, what EMS agency you work for, we're here as a global type of umbrella to make pre-hospital care in sync with the hospital, which is ultimately going to mean more productive lives saved. So that, it's really kind of putting together. Now with the mutual aid, here's the basic philosophy, and I come from a very strong mutual aid program, that the idea is to get people there as quick as possible and train. With that being said, with mutual aid, the time a call comes in, and I hear on the radio, you guys or Swanzey or whoever will call and say, we need this type of emergency at this location, the fire department's responding, and DiLuzio's calling. So that's being done, is trying to do a simultaneous approach. So mutual aid is the key. There is, even where I came from, which was very rich in firefighters and paramedics, one department could not handle it. And I can speak for that when you look at the city of Chicago, because I was one of the two chiefs that went into the city of Chicago. And because we covered the west side of O'Hare, and the city of Chicago could not handle everything. So that's our real global aspect. Now, we look at it, we're going to have under the umbrella of CCEMS, we're going to have the IFTs, we're going to have the 911 bifurcated down to ambulances as well as fly cars. We're going to have the educational component. When we bifurcate that down, we're going to look at community education, professional education, and future education. Because to me, is when I have the big one, I don't want someone to look around and go, gosh, I wish I knew what to do. or what were those acronyms? It wasn't CPR, because I don't know that. So that's really the goal, is to enhance the system, to add to the system, so we get a better outcome. And how do we do that? We do that with education, we do that with cooperation, and we do that with a unified approach. Now, I will tell you, with myself, I currently have an apartment in Keene. I wish y'all would bring the prices down here so my wife, doesn't have a heart attack when they send her the prices. But I will be responding. Now I've just got my state EMT. I let my national go. I'm retesting to get my national. We've got the DC that'll be responding as well, but we're there to add on to. It's kind of an all-call type of situation, so to help out.
And just to go back to the grants real quickly, we get grants all the time, and if you guys are looking at something and what we have found is when we can team up, we have a better chance at the grant. So if there's things that we can do together and we can help and let, early on, Robbie approached us around IV pumps and ventilators. And we had the monies through the CARES Act to be able to give that, and we did, because it was the right thing to do. We're hoping to continue that kind of mentality. If you have some need, can we talk about it and see if there's ways to answer those issues? That's something that I've learned, and I think, Michael, you probably know this, county government and town, we have this opportunity to go after certain things that sometimes others may not. And so we should take advantage of that, because others are. And we get left behind if we don't. So we've always been aggressive about things, but if there are needs out there, let us know, and let's see if we can work together on it.
From my point of view, not as a chief, but just as a guy, in terms of mutual aid, if you need something, call us. You get to decide where on the run card at mutual aid we are, if at all. If you don't put us on the run card, we're not going to get dispatched. So put us fourth, put us fifth, I don't know, figure that out. But it would be kind of a shame to have us down the street and not be asked to respond if you need it. You don't need it, that's fine. But at least we'd be available, because if we're not on the run card, we're not going to get notified that you need help. Just on the mutual aid front, no money involved, just like every other community, just like every other mutual arrangement. So
you have MOUs or contracts with the other agencies?
We certainly could do that. Yeah. I don't know that everyone has an MOU if they just get added to the run card, but what's that?
You were throwing out the other acronyms, so I figured I'd throw it.
We'll do whatever it takes to reach some understanding of what we can do for you. If it's mutual aid, just to help out, if there's some sort of event and you're out resourced, you need more resources, let us know, give us a call, page us out. Otherwise, we'll just do our thing in town.
So for those who don't know, what is a run card?
Well, the chief could probably describe that, but a mutual aid, when a call comes in and they dispatch somebody, they used to be the old days, because I remember the old days, flip cards, card exits. And it would say, well, if there's an ambulance call or a fire call in Swanzey, here's what you do first, here's who you tone, here's who you tone second, here's who you tone third. If you need tanker, here are the tankers, here's where they come from. So the whole plan is out there. Mutual aid's not making it up. They have a plan that the chief sets up that says, here's the resources that I need in my town for various emergencies. And so mutual aid just looks at that card and they read off the cues and they tone people out. And the more people that are on the run card and the worse the situation is, they've got endless resources to tone people out to get an appropriate response. So who doesn't get toned out during mass casualties or severe things? People that aren't on the run card. So doesn't matter where we are, you guys get to decide that.
For the most part, though, mutual aid, Randy, correct me, but mutual aid, the cards are based on fire response, correct?
Yeah, we do have like EMS response, but I think a lot of that is mostly mass casualty kind of, when we run into a situation where we, basically when we run into a problem that's more problems than resources we have, that's where that really comes into play, and start pulling in and getting us the needed items.
You look at the paper version of the run card, the fire section's at the top, and there's a block down here for EMS, special units like OHRV, brush units, things like that, and so it lays out who's, like on Swanzey run card, it says DIL, and then KFD, and then I think 40. And it says usually the number of the town. I think like Winchester's next is 40, and Troy 34, and all that goes up. And that's all set by the chief because he's the authority on jurisdiction over it.
So I'm thinking that maybe some type of contract between transport agencies, some agreement.
Yeah, so
from that standpoint, because you guys are billing for service to the customer.
Like you asked, our agreements with, in the state of New Hampshire, I don't know if everybody knows, but the state of New Hampshire EMS is not considered an essential service. Only fire and police are. And so the RSAs that pertain to mutual aid in the state of New Hampshire don't apply to EMS. So, tomorrow, if you called Rescue Inc. because none of us were available, Rescue Inc. could say, okay, we're coming, but it's $50,000, for that one call. Not that they would do that, you know what I mean? So there's no requirement, unlike fire and police, if Keene calls Swanzey, as long as Swanzey's available, they have to come. So what we did several years ago with the city of Keene, the first, and I believe still the only, EMS mutual aid agreement in the state, and basically we went to the city of Keene and said, you cover the towns that we cover, and we will cover the towns that you cover, and there'll be no additional charge. And it literally lists the towns that each agency covers on that contract, and it describes exactly what we'll back each other up in. So that's how that came about. And actually, Chief Farquhar can comment on that, so he's here. Very quietly sitting in the back.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Michael? Yeah. Why? Rob? Good.
At this time.
Good. Well, we appreciate you all coming in. Thank you very much.
Where are you for breakfast tomorrow?
I know, we should figure that out, shouldn't we? Not sure what time. I think I'll be home.
I walk into Hillsborough County Commissioners meeting, I sit down, I look, and he's sitting there, I'm like,
There was something.
am I in Wickham Hall?
It is a nice hall there, though.
Yeah.
Not quite as nice as upstairs, but it is a nice facility.
It's all right, you guys kicked it here.
We had a good committee on this.
You did.
It was a very nice building.
Yep. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Appreciate it. It's a steel cage.
And if you don't see anybody else,
You guys.
Oh, yeah. That's drunk, man, I've seen you.
I heard you on the radio.
How are you, Chief? Nice to see you. Is that good?
Well, yeah, it could be remote.
All right, appreciate
I'll say Chief, it's a lot.
Thanks, boss, I'll be in touch about education now. Let me know.
I want to get that done.
On that trip. It'll be hopefully my next week. It's interesting, but we'll talk.
That's grand, man. It leaves it everywhere.
Welcome back.
This is a short break.
So one of the things the chief was tasked with is trying to find some innovative ways to either add more coverage, respond to more calls, respond more quickly. So he worked with Julius construction numbers on a couple different options. He's going to discuss his preferred alternatives or staff.
All right.
Make it useful.
And we'll move. Sorry.
I had cataract surgery earlier in the year.
All right.
I can't decide what I'm here.
I know.
My glasses don't seem to work. So it's an eye chart for me. Looks like this, you're doing something with the step plan.
Well, that was just kind of the first sheet, so,
That's the current
we can draw, if you want to go to the third page then. What I'm proposing is, we want to extend our hours of coverage, to, we have the weekend shifts or per diem, and we want to extend our hours of coverage from 5 to 10.
Before you go much further. Is the burgundy here, the pink up here?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So we want to extend our coverage to 10 p.m. Okay, so, and the main objective is to bring Deputy Chief West. Again, I'm going to request the board to consider his part-time position to go to full-time. So we'll have 3 full-time personnel. We have to forgive Julius, we call us officers, we're fire personnel.
He'll get it.
Yeah. So we, that's the main, and, you know, actually.
I made sure to know that.
So those are the 2 objectives. So I want to, first and foremost, transition Chief West into the full-time position, and again, extend our hours to our per diem, our department members, and that would be from 5 to 10. So we extend our coverage a little bit more. If you look at some of our peak times that, I'll let Brandon, if you want to explain a little bit more with our peak times and hours, some of our calls that we're getting.
I think it's the last page is the hours. The second to last page will be day of the week. So this is it's a little confusing because we changed that software in the middle of the year. So starting in August, we started onto the new ESL platform. And
We on this one?
the big blue ones here, the last 2 pages are from our basically January to July 31st. And this is all the
Overall calls?
all calls, yep, and it breaks it down to this one with the many bars is hours of the day, and then the bigger one is the days of the week. And as you can see, the spikes run heaviest between, I believe that's 7 a.m. up to, and it starts to dwindle off around 10. That's what I'm looking at. Yeah, yes, 4 o'clock, 6, yeah, around 6 o'clock. And you see that big spike. So during this, I guess you would say, bracketed area of the hours, that's when the majority of those calls came in those hours. And that's, I believe, around 680 calls from January 1st to July. So that's just the hours. And then when you back up to that second to last page, it's basically Sunday through Saturday, and it just basically shows that like Monday, the big heavy majority of those calls came in on a Monday, and then Tuesday, and so on and so forth, and it kind of levels out and stays pretty even for the rest of it.
What do you think contributes to Monday and Tuesday being significantly higher than especially Monday?
Honestly, I don't know, because then when I rerun this on the new program, Wednesday became the heavier day, so I wish I could combine the 2. I think ultimately we just see it kind of like an even thing.
The national trend is like Tuesdays are busy.
Yeah, so there's no rhyme or reason why I couldn't tell you, and I couldn't, going on the calls, I couldn't give you a reason why. So, and then the same thing with time of day, it's just, you see the big spike in was it noon?
Yeah, between noon So this would be, our highest call volume would be in that light green, where the full-time working pretty much. And then the two, the paid on call, so that would be our kind of a median level for call volume.
That's the 5:30 to.
Yeah.
That's what that number is, Wednesday, that's on the week program.
The next year when we do this, we'll have one, we'll be using just one ESO, one program. We split, because we went, August, we started with ESO, got rid of firehouse, so a lot of that data is, between both programs, so it's good. Still in mismatch.
But they tend to trend the same. So they trend the same, if you look at them overall.
And so the options we talked about would be, kind of equal to, we do Saturday, Sundays per diem, 8 to 4. So that 5 to 10 would either be paid on call or the same as per diem, we'll operate on the station. So paid on call would be, we have people on standby, and if they come in for a call, there's a certain wage, $50 or whatever the wage was, so we sell them. They would be ready to respond from home, so they're guaranteed to get a response.
And they would be compensated regardless of whether a call
They
came.
would come in and immediately go to their pay, rate of pay, so depending on whatever their staff class is.
If there were no call, they would get the per diem, whatever that fee is.
So if you want me to speak a little bit about that portion of it, I'll slide this up in the middle here. So I went and sat with the fire crew on Monday and really kind of narrowed down what we thought was the most impactful way to expand the services while offering it during the most conducive time frame. And so what we had noticed was that when you check the charts, 6 a.m. up until closer to 6 p.m., that 12-hour shift is when we have the most calls, and then some of it's actually, I would say, dwindled, but it started to decrease relatively slowly up until 10 p.m., and then it drastically cut down. So the important time frames really was that 6 till 10 time frame. So we know, obviously, with labor laws and what the restrictions on that goes down to is that if we keep it at 8 a.m., go towards the typical 8-hour shift, and then move it 5 days a week, per the request of these guys, that would keep our most heavily houred calls during the week covered by the 3 full-time employees. Now, the on-call portion of it, which would occur afterwards, is set at a $5 an hour rate. So you'll be paid the $5 an hour up until you receive that call, and then you'll be paid, like we had said, the rate to respond to that call. And then once the call ends, then you would go back to your on-call status until eventually your end of shift occurs. We didn't want to extend that all the way throughout the end of the night, only because at this point we don't see the call volume to do such. You'll notice that in the charts it does depict what our estimated call volume would be throughout the year within those timeframes, and this would allow us to, I believe it was something like 600 calls that we would actually be able to service throughout the year that we're missing currently. Now, I say missing only because these numbers are based off of the calls that we respond to. It doesn't correlate with the, if DiLuzio responds to the calls, we wouldn't see those stats. Is that right?
No, that was if we're not tagged into the call. So every now and then, like if one of our fire department doesn't respond, they usually tag us so it comes onto our CAD. If the dispatcher fails to add that little placeholder, we don't get to see it. So those are, I track them a different way because they still come through on our responding app. So we still pick them up that way, and I have to just kind of keep tally of those off to the side. So that's when those are missed. No, the rest of these numbers are everything that's ever been toned in that regard. So there's probably anywhere from 50 to 75 throughout the year that they're like not on the books, if you will. Somebody went, it's just they didn't tag our town piece into it, so we don't get that information fed to us, so it just doesn't track. I can't do anything about it. So other than just make a note that on this day, at this time, there was a call. And so I try to keep those in that spreadsheet for that. So
I think it's important to emphasize that we're seeing a large trend away from individuals that are volunteer responding to these calls on a regular basis. There needs to be some level of an incentive to ensure that they want to respond. And if you're on call, the expectation is that you will respond because you know you're getting a paycheck. And so some of the other local communities are also transitioning to this same level of paid on-call status and seeing success with it. I used it in Deering for police, not for fire, but we saw that level of success. So I think we could say that given the scenario at hand, if our goal is to expand hours afterwards, offer more end of the day stuff, which call volume is showing that there is calls there that do need help. And this is one of those scenarios where it allows us to do such and use per diem on-call funds to do so. Yeah, I think that's kind of the gist of the actual, that was the reasoning behind it. I wanted to emphasize that was why we got to this particular point.
Like, yeah, they just answered a call just now up on Rhodes phone, or on Rhodes Winchester, so. Yep.
You can send this to me so I can print it out. See it.
Get larger.
That would be helpful.
A lot of information.
I
can't read hardly anything.
Yeah.
I chose blue for some of the cells because like when I'm looking at it all day, if it's white, it burns my eyes. So maybe it's not printer friendly.
So what's the bottom line?
So the bottom line impact is about 125, is that right? Whenever we find it in the end, because that includes the full-time employee and that includes the on-call rates as well. You'll notice that on that piece on the side, it breaks out what the on-call impact is and what the 127, is that right?
Yeah, 127, 692.
So, yeah, sorry. So,
Does that include benefits and retirement and everything?
Yes, absolutely. I went to Teresa and I had her give me all the benefit packages. There's that piece there. We can send it to you electronically as well, and you can see those numbers calculated out. The majority of that, as you know, is in the full-time piece of it, but that full-time piece of it addresses our more higher on-call hours, or demand hours, excuse me. So that was where that was pulled from.
Going back when I first got out of college, and I still remember the shifts that I worked. We had it was a 7-day program, and as managers, we had what were referred to as rotating shifts. So there was some overlap. But basically, I'm wondering if any kind of a structure was looked at that would vary the hours so that over the course of 7 days, there'd be at least one full-time one full-time fire person now on site at any one time, as opposed to the block of 8 to 5 or 7:30 to 5:30, whatever it is, Monday through Friday.
Yeah, we did look at a model like that. Traditionally, it's your staff, it's your command staff, it's your administrative staff that are working 5 days a week. So, traditionally in most places, chief of PD, chief of DPW, they're not kind of staggered like that. Most fire departments are, their administrative staff works 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 during the week, so the weekends are on other supervisors. But we did look at that. I mean, I felt like this would still, as we kept it the way we're doing now, we have our members on that covering Saturdays, Sundays. It's, I looked at kind of the way they're rotating, and as the chief, nice to have 2 days off during the week, but at the same time, we're missing a lot of administrative things, meetings with vendors, so forth, that I feel that it is more important to be there during the week. So, not that I would be opposed to working Saturday, Sunday, because we're always around Saturdays.
We're here around anyway.
Yeah, so, no, we went over that scenario, that model. I still felt that this would still be a stronger model. So, again, but bringing Brandon in, he's a tremendous asset. I believe I brought this up last year, and which is unique to the department because he's actually, I believe, the only one that drives every piece of apparatus. well, a couple guys drive other things, but he just obtained this year, Brandon and I obtained an Inspector 1, and he just, which is a very significant course, fire investigator. So he adds to our kind of level of capabilities and training. And again, as a paramedic, I'd like to have him there 5 days a week. And it gives us the capability, deliver paramedic service in those peak times. So, I think that it would be a benefit to the town, certainly the department, to bring him on for that full time. But to answer the question, I don't think it would be, that much of an impact, or any impact whatsoever as far as operationally, if we did a rotating schedule like that.
Well, glad you looked into it.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody have any questions, anything to add? Sly? All right, well, we're gonna get the blow off. We appreciate you doing it, because obviously this was something we were passionate about a few months back. And looks like you put quite a bit of work into it, Julius, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Julius.
Yes. All right, what's next?
EMS Advisory Committee charge.
We'll stay here.
Sure.
Yeah, did everybody have a chance to read it? Thoughts or suggestions?
Just, I don't know if we want to just limit it to 5, only because people's schedules, sometimes everybody can't make it.
Ken doesn't like big committees.
Well, Ken's not on this one, is he?
No, he's not.
He's an ex officio member.
He's busy tomorrow night, though, at the planning board.
That's true.
Tomorrow night's a big night.
Oh, well.
That's right.
Oh, well.
No, they're gonna be on water, not well.
That's right. Public water. I think the interest in a 5-member committee was more the nimbleness of it, and making sure that the people that were on it were ready and willing to do the work that was going to be needed to pull this together in a short period of time. Two things I would put out were, one, I think the composition should change. I think it should be 1 member of the fire department, 3 members of the public, and 1 appointed staff member. And I think the board should determine who the chair is, to try to maintain as much impartiality and transparency as possible. For you all, just so you know where this came from, Bill will recall a conversation that we had where I spoke specifically with regard to the ambulance itself, not the service, but the ambulance. When we approved purchasing the ambulance in April of 2020, it was a set of circumstances that I know I'd never experienced before, and I don't know that too many others here did either. So we decided to move forward with the purchase of the ambulance, with the understanding that when things settle down, that there'd be an opportunity to reevaluate whether we maintained that piece of equipment or not. And so I had said to Bill that I noticed in the CIP committee schedule that there was projection, and I didn't know whether it was for a second ambulance or replacing the existing one, that personally, if I was still here, that I would need to be convinced that the ambulance, again, not the service, but the ambulance was a requirement. Sly has made it clear that he, and I'll let him speak for himself, but he has a vision for the fire department, which is different than what it is today. So it seemed, and that revolved around the EMS services. And again, I'll let you explain it, but it seemed prudent, given the fact that the existing ambulance is going to be coming up for replacement. The county, that's why we had them here tonight, is getting involved in the service and could be a player in our market, that we appoint a committee to advise the select board with regard to the need for A, EMS services in general, B, having a service ambulance vehicle, C, whether we should get involved in billing. I'm not sure if there was anything else, but those were the things that were most prevalent. So I'm looking at it from the perspective that the information will be very helpful, because if it can be shown that we do in fact need a vehicle, I'm all for it. But I don't want to make a decision as one vote, either yay or nay, without having the data. I think that's important, and I think the citizens deserve that. But I'll let Sly go with and explain his perspective. And again, with where Sly's going again, from my perspective, again, I just want to know the data. I like what's going on. I think you all provide a tremendous service for the community. We're trying to do things to bolster the enrollment, the participation. It's all in support of the department. But where are we going, I think, is the overall question. And Lois Mack alluded to it a little bit with regard to the need for the services that they're providing. We used to tell your predecessor, make the case. If you're talking about ambulance service, make the case, make it to the voters. They're the ones that are going to decide. And it's the same thing with regard to fire service in general. If our enrollment is declining, along with other communities, there may be a need for the county to step in. And I've been a proponent of that, but it's data. It's data driven for me. So from my perspective, that's why I'm supportive of the committee, because I'd like to get that information.
One question I have for the committee, if you would like to see one fire department member, so if they were town residents, but members of the fire department, because I know I'm gonna get the question, would they be able to be in for the committee as a resident and not a fire department member, or they would make them exempt because they're affiliated with the fire department?
My response is just me, my colleagues, and Michael should weigh in. I would say they'd be exempt. What I would like to see is a completely impartial, data-driven report that will help us. And one way or the other, whichever way it comes out, if there's multiple people on the committee that are affiliated with the department, I just don't think it's going to give the indication that this is an impartial review. So from my perspective, the answer would be no. If you want to talk with them with regard to your vision for the department.
I've always said that we have to get Station 2 out of the basement of the town hall. And we're looking at $100,000 a year for 30 years to pay that. So we can't do anything as far as full-time for expanding that. Running an ambulance, running 2 ambulances, billing, transports, none of that stuff, until we get the fire stations figured out. And once we move Station 2 out to a new station, we still have Station 1 that's going to need some major stuff in the next 10 to 15 years. And Station 3 probably ought to be over on Route 10, just as the town expands. So we have a lot of things coming that we've been on hold the last 7, 8 years. And there's not enough money to do everything.
Right, so the EMS, as we're running now, again, we're busy enough where we can generate revenue, not that we're in the business model of things, but we can generate revenue with transports that, can go back into the general fund. If we dissolve our EMS response, and, like I said before, as a fire chief, I can't sit here and kind of advocate for getting rid of something that does 70% of what we do. It's basically like, again, when I first came here, I said, we're basically an EMS department that does fires, so that's what we're doing. And to have the membership that we have and the dedication we have, to have those, a majority of the members cross-trained, to be able to handle EMS calls and fire calls, is an absolute win. So I think if we dissolve EMS, we would be going backwards. Really. I understand the cost, but where's the cost factor when it comes to serving the community, the people that need the help?
We're gonna have 8 ambulances within our town. Staffed, 24/7.
You see that? I will-
So, and then we also have DiLuzio that at night right now runs the calls alone pretty much. So if the committee can generate data, like Bill said, that proves otherwise, fine. But we're talking about if we paid outside agencies a couple $100,000, we'd be ahead of the game based on what we're paying right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost, to me, it looks like, you have the fire service, you have a fire-based EMS service, we already have that established. And to me, if you want to dissolve that, it's almost like telling the police department, you can still be a police officer or service the public as the police thing, but you can't go to assaults, or you can't go to robberies. That's part of what we do. That's in the fabric of today's fire department, and we are moving ahead of that. So I think.
But you understand that fire department will still go as EMS to do extrications, carries, lift assists, things like that. But as far as the regular medical emergency, you're taking 700 calls off the table. You guys could do 600 calls and get better response and not be overwhelmed with what you have now. I mean, what I heard upstairs was that the people weren't able to go out at night because they were so tired from going out during the day.
Well,
I mean, if you're talking about taking 70–80% of the calls away that are just medical emergencies.
You're relying on, see, here's the big thing. Monday through Friday thing is when everybody has a full-time job. We're relying on those individuals when they're not at their job, if they're available to answer a call. Everybody's got whatever their hours are for it. Some work 12 hours, some people work 14 hours, some people work an 8-hour shift. We don't know what they work for their full-time day. The reason I don't know the reason that they're not going out, they're not available is basically it. When the phone goes out at 2 a.m., if nobody answers that call, and it doesn't matter if it's a medical or it's a fire or it's somebody's smoke detector going off or a cat in a tree, that's the phone that goes out. If they're not answering it, and nobody's answering. The medical, we're benefiting is we have a contract with DiLuzio, they go to that call, but they're still relying on us to be able to try to help them. To answer that question, that's what we're working on with this, is trying to do that in a more cost-effective way, because like you said, we got a lot of things coming down the road that we have to do, and there's a lot of moving parts. We'd love to be able to say, yeah, if we can put this on hold for 5 years and we'll get back to it, that would be great. It's not gonna work that way. We're gonna have to do multiple things all at the same time. That's just the way the fire department actually operates anyways. So to say, I mean, the committee, I do agree by trying to get to those numbers and those baselines, because you can throw things out there all day long if you don't have something to back it up. We work in it every day, so we kind of see that it's a little easier for us to be able to bring in and kind of make an educated guess, but I don't think dissolving it would solve that problem, because they're still going to call and ask. And if you remove a big portion of it and then we lose those providers that we do, that we have trained and cultivated and provided as a provider, we ultimately end up losing them down the road because we're not providing that need that they had to do, or work why they joined the fire service. Now we're going to even have less of those people answer us. I think it'll actually, to me, I feel like it would compound those issues of things not getting answered. And then we're going to have to rely on an outside source more, which, like anything, if you're going to do more, you're going to pay more for it. And I think it'll undermine the fire department down the road. I don't think it'll be like that instant impact. I think there is a way of moving, like these little things like that, just making those self-adjustments, trying to.
This isn't a little thing, it's 150.
Oh, yeah, no, I totally get it, but it fills the bulk of some of the need during the middle of the week, and then you gotta hope when we rely on that call department that they're there. Can't tell you why somebody can go out one time, can't go out the other, right? I know there's times that I'm up at Allstate, call comes in, I'm not making a call, that's, you know, I'm over 45 minutes away. Pretty sure they're not gonna appreciate me trying to make a call that far out. So, those are the moving parts that happen with the call department. Like the per diem stuff, trying to get the on-calls, trying to guarantee, hey, well, we're gonna give you, you know, we're not gonna give you your regular rate, but a reduced rate to be available between these hours, and then they should be answering those calls. Now, can we extend that through the night? I just think that's a slow, we just gotta, that's one of those things, like I said, just move it methodically down the road. The ambulance, I can say, working with DiLuzio, especially in the last year, our ambulance has paid hugely. It's been a huge asset to a lot of calls. Recent trauma with the burn victim, our ambulance was the one that ultimately ended up doing that. We would like to be able to, once we know that's solidified, even working with DiLuzio and talking with them, being able to simulate and integrate so that they're able to get on our truck, we're able to get on their truck, and make those things happen. It's like everything. We can't predict when all the calls are coming. I always joke, Swanzey seems to, like, when they get one, they get them all. You know, we landed 2 helicopters simultaneously. We had a working cardiac arrest and a severe respiratory arrest, all in one, with an hour-and-a-half time frame, and we're landing 2 helicopters. That tied up resources. It does happen, and it seems sometimes it seems like it happens a lot, and then we just go into that lull. But I do feel that ambulance has actually paid off. And remember, I told you about the concerns we were worried, you know, were we preparing for a hurricane when we ended up with a wind event? But it has proven itself in that area that we wanted to for safety and patient safety and provider safety. That ambulance has actually paid, and that probably helped us with the decontamination and not contaminating people with the COVID and getting through that crisis. And now it's just, it's been paying those, what, 30 times, we're almost up to 30 times this year, just passively that ambulance has been needed because of just circumstances. When we get busy, if another town's busy, even Keene, I don't know if the chief's still here, the other day, they were out on 3 calls and they were begging for people to come back because their assets were tied up just on those 3 calls. And then, you know, we get 3 calls, we obviously are not staffed like that. So working with DiLuzio as a partner, these are some of the things that we're trying to help mitigate when that kind of emergency comes, with communication and being able to say, hey, sometimes our ambulance can get out, they got one guy that comes down and they can team up and we got to transport ambulance, and it didn't interfere with any of the other outlying things that go on within the regional system. So that's what I say. I would be not in favor of that because I feel like it would kind of undermine us down the road. And then I think once you get behind, then it's even a harder step to try and get caught back up. You know, counties, you heard them say it, they can't do it without the other towns. They don't want to undermine those other services, even ours. They've even told us we would love for you to be able to do this because they would like to help when we need to help, but be able to, you know, stand back and not have to be that, you know, having to always carry that load. So that, to me, is always reassuring because then that helps us grow what we have within our community and helping our community, and then have other services behind to be able to, you know, pick up when that heaviness, you know, happens. I mean, we could predict them, but you know, we give you grass, but that's over the course of it. But sometimes, yeah, you know, like I said, one maybe come in.
See what the data shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, so we're on a time, is a date there to bring in the data for that, for the committee?
Next year, we would like it by August, or at least for an initial report, so we could make any determination with regard to the warrant for 2024. So this is something I think we would put together relatively quickly. Yeah, Michael?
Motion to approve with that amendment you noted on the composition. Do you want to go to 7 or stay at 5, or, you know, you'd said reduce the staff number, which I think is reasonable. If you want to approve it with that amendment, or do you want to wait?
The EMS committee.
Which amendment?
Going from 2 fire members to 1.
Yep.
And then I don't know what you decided on 7 versus 5, but that was the other.
I can go with 5, but I'm just telling you, over the course of 6,
2
7 months,
alternates.
somebody's gonna
Find
drop
2
out.
alternates.
2 alternates.
There you go.
One firefighter, 2
Alternates.
members of the public,
3,
3 members of the public,
1 staff.
1 staff member,
and 1 staff, okay.
and that person is not here. And restricting the overall committee to 1 member of the fire department.
Yes, I have that.
I'm just saying, because Bill brought up the thought if somebody came on as a quote-unquote regular citizen.
Everyone as an alternate, or still just want to vote on it?
I think we're just better off with 1, just to,
1 alternate,
no, one fire personnel.
no alternate.
2 alternates.
Oh, 2 alternates.
Who's on first?
Just to try
I
to,
don't know.
You'll see it when Mike draws it up.
I think that the chief should make people available to the committee. So if there's people on your staff and in your department that want to participate in that way, in terms of the committee asking for information like you all have provided tonight, I think that's certainly appropriate and expected, actually. So, and the board would select the chair.
Yeah,
All right.
that's reflective.
Fine. All right, that's
Okay.
that's fine.
All right, we need a motion.
Yes.
Make the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Brandon, appreciate it.
Brandon?
Thanks for all your work. It's a pleasure.
Oh, yeah.
Full business?
So the covered bridge is painted.
Double bridge is painted this week. Done.
Mike, I have something. Dave, let me take the floor for a second. Sure. I was told to keep the meeting short, so I'm moving along with this one. But pretty much the gist is that.
These are the darts. Just make sure you have some protection.
So the general gist is that at the, probably the last
I'm
memo.
not getting your good side there.
Oh, sorry. One of the last memos that Mike had sent out, we had basically a cyber incident at the town hall. Actually, it was at the wastewater treatment plant. But the moral of the story is that I worked with IT, we got the computer cleaned up. It will be going back to the wastewater treatment plant. It was a substantive breach. Basically, they had full access to the computer, and it was, if the computer was a bit more, say, important, if it was connected to the town server, or if the computer itself was, say, in the finance office or in the clerk's office, I think there was a real opportunity that there could have been a much more substantial breach. But luckily, it was not the case. I will say that the concern itself right now is minimal in that sense, but other than the fact that I think we really need to do a cybersecurity policy. Michael and I have been working extensively to get that drafted up, so the next time the board meets, I would like to propose that to the board. The policy will address some levels of training for staff internally, but it will also address ways that we can basically beef up our security systems. So basically to try to avoid this from happening again is the intent.
There's still a grant out there for water sewer.
Yeah, we actually just talked about that today.
Yeah, so that'll cover water and sewer. I do think that the real concern right now isn't necessarily in the water and sewer, although the incident did occur there. I think it really lies in finance and the clerk's office, because that's where the most money comes in. I know everybody points to Peterborough, but that's exactly the point we're trying to avoid. Do you remember how many attacks, Alan, we had on the daily? It's not, I don't have it off the top of my head. I mean, it's a substantial number, thousands of attacks. And luckily,
the hits on the firewall a day, I don't remember, but it was a lot.
So those are blocked on the daily, but currently the programs we have right now are blocking 98 point whatever, but it's that 0.2 that could be the one that costs us. So we want to increase those numbers almost to 100%, and that's what we're trying to do with this. And training is really the best way, because human reaction is what's going to cause us a concern. So anyways, that's kind of the goal. I want to bring the policy to you guys, and obviously you'll have the chance to read it and review it, but I'm hoping to get it started by the beginning of the year, and then just begin a process of mandating yearly training, making sure people know how to use email, make sure people know how to use the software that they're using, that kind of thing. So that's all.
Password, that's a practice.
Passwords, two-factor verification, that kind of thing.
Preview of what's to come.
I don't know if I need to do that, but I think I'd just give you the spiel.
Glad you did, and you'll have all this for next Wednesday.
That's right. Absolutely.
It's pretty much done.
Oh, come on, that was the magic.
Any non-public?
No.
Anything else, Sly? Ken? No. Julie? Michael?
No.
All right. Douglas?
Anybody online?
Do we have anybody online, Josh? Did we?
be able to hear him every time. Yeah,
You don't
it's
like-
put in, so.
You don't let them just talk whenever they want though, do you?
Um,
You gotta be the moderator.
Yeah.
You gotta keep them in line.
Didn't we see something about that?
well, usually they mute themselves, but,
I can't trust them.
The rattling of the paper.
We'll torment them further after the meeting. Motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.